Hi everyone. In this tutorial I'm going to be doing a Christmas Argyle cup, and if you watched my previous Argyle tutorial you'll remember that I used a rubber band to help draw a straight line on the cup to get a starting point for my diamonds. I've kind of updated it a little bit, and for this one I'm going to be using 3 rubber bands. And that'll get me guidelines all the way around the cup. So for the first 2 I'm making an X pattern, and then with the third one I'm going to split that X in half. I'm also going to be showing you another option to do these if this way doesn't work for you. So I found with the 3 rubber bands it was much easier to get my diamonds on straight, and it didn't take as long. You just want to make sure that you get your spaces even as possible, but don't kill yourself trying to get it perfect, because it's not going to be perfect. So that's what it should look like when you get done. And now that I have the rubber bands on there and I have it the way I want it, I'm going to use a pencil, and I'm going to use those rubber bands to help me get straight lines on the cup. So make sure that whatever side you start on, the first band is the same side that you draw your line on the other bands. And try not to move the rubber band too much. It's kind of hard not to move it, but just try not to move it too much. Try to keep your lines as straight as possible. And then once you have your lines drawn on, then you can take the rubber bands off. And I know it's hard for y'all to see on camera, but now I have a guideline for each row of diamonds. So this first option is the stencil that I made for my previous Argyle cup. Each row of diamonds is slightly smaller than the one before it, so the top row diamonds are bigger than the middle row, and the middle row is slightly bigger than the bottom row. And it's because the cup tapers. It's not exactly straight. So I like to do it each row from top to bottom, and I'm just trying to get my bottom and top points on the line, and then I will work out the sides. It's easier for me to do it that way. So as long as you follow your line, then you should have no problem. All your diamonds should be straight. If you can hear my dog in the background, I apologize. Some of you are used to hearing him. Some of you have never heard him before, but that's what he does. He snores. So this is a 20-ounce skinny that I'm doing, And the measurements for it are in my previous ARGYLE tutorial, but I will include it in this one, and I will also include the measurements for a 30-ounce skinny. So that top diamond was just a little wonky, so I'm going to fix it real quick, and then I'm going to move on to the rest of the diamonds. So as I said, I found this way so much easier. In the previous ARGYLE tutorial, I had one guideline to start with, and then you're kind of just eyeballing the rest of the diamonds, but it's so much easier doing it this way. And even though the first one was a little difficult, I've had so many people come to me or send me pictures of the cups of their ARGYLEs that they were able to make with the tutorial, and that just makes my heart so happy to see that my tutorial helped people, because the ARGYLEs, for me anyway, have always been the hardest one to learn, because there's not a lot of tutorials on it. It was one of those are like the super advanced, to me they were anyway. So to see people be able to make one watching my tutorial just made me so happy. So this is the second option that I'm showing you. It's a stencil that you can get on Etsy from LEB Creations, and she has many stencils, different patterns, camo, ARGYLE, plaid. This one is specifically for a 20-ounce hog tumbler, and once I got it on there, I realized that this is not a hog tumbler, it's a no-name brand tumbler. So some of you, the stencil might work better. So I used the overlap of my transfer tape to hold it in position on my cup. And I peeled the backing paper off of the other end and started laying that end on my cup. You want to make sure before you start, you want to make sure that you do a test, wrap it around your cup first, make sure it's all lined up perfectly, and then either use your transfer tape overlap or use some painter's tape or something to hold it into position. And if you do it right, then it should line up perfectly once you get it all on there, just like that. Now, as you can see, it didn't reach all the way to the bottom, and that's why I think this was not the hog. I think the first one that I did was the hog. So just make sure when you get the stencil, you get it for, she has them for different brands of cups, the Hogs, the Maker Flow, the Craft Haven, different brands, different sizes. So just make sure you get the right one. This cup that I'm doing is a 20-ounce cup, but as you'll see in just a minute, it's just a little bit taller than the first 20-ounce cup I did. When you download the file, she gives you the exact measurement that you need to enter in when you get it into Design Space or your Silhouette Studio. She gives you the exact measurement, so there's no guesswork on that. And I'm pretty sure that I entered in that measurement correctly, so that's why I'm thinking I used the wrong cup. But I improvised, and it wasn't exactly what I was wanting, but it didn't come out looking too bad. And I mean, it looks fine just like that. I could have left it like that, but it's not really what I was going for. So I just took some of the stencil that I peeled off from the row above, and I overlapped it onto those diamonds that got cut off. So it didn't give me a full diamond, it didn't give me a half diamond, it got me a little over a half a diamond, but at least it went all the way down to the bottom of the cup. So again, make sure that you're getting the stencil for the right brand and the right size, and make sure you get it on there, positioned on there correctly. And both options worked fine for me. I was a little clumsy getting the stencil on there, but that's only because it's the first time I've used the ARGYLE stencil. So as you can see, one of them is slightly taller than the other. So that's where that gap at the bottom came in. So all 20 ounce are not made equal. But yeah, the stencil worked just fine. I just prefer doing it, laying each diamond on. It could have been just because it was my first time, but I was clumsy getting that stencil on. Right here I am using acrylic paint to adhere my glitter to the cup. It works just as well as Mod Podge. The thicker acrylic paints work better because you get better coverage and they don't dry as fast. The thinner ones will dry quickly like Mod Podge. So there were a few spots that I had to go back and touch up because the paint dried before I got the glitter on, and I should have used a darker red to go with this gorgeous red color. It's such a, I love this color, it's such a rich red. This glitter is one of my Bumblebird glitters. It's called Red Velvet. And it's perfect for Christmas cups. And the paint I'm using is just a 50-cent Walmart paint. Nothing fancy. And I did not seal between each color. If it makes you more comfortable to do that, then by all means do it, but I did not. So now I'm just going and I'm going to peel off the decal. Another good thing about using the acrylic paint versus the Mod Podge, if you go back to my previous Argyle tutorial, you'll remember that when I was pulling the stencil off, it was pulling parts of my glitter off with it because of the Mod Podge. By the time I got done putting the glitter on, the Mod Podge was already dry. So when I pulled my stencil, it started pulling parts of the glitter off. The acrylic paint didn't do that on this one. I think Argyle cups are one of my favorites to make. I just love the way they look. They are time consuming. Whether you use my stencil or the one on Etsy, what you have to do after you get the diamonds on is still the same process. You still have to put your adhesive and your glue. So putting the stencil might save a little more time, but what you have to do afterwards, it's still the same. As long as the end result is what you wanted, it doesn't matter how you get the diamonds on there. I apologize for my dog. So I did end up getting some red paint on my white areas, and I will go back and fix that here shortly. Right now I'm just applying my second color. This glitter is another Bumblebird glitter, and it's called Field of Dreams. You're going to do every other diamond, so we started in that row with those two, and now I'm going to do the opposite of those. And just continue to do every other one around the cup. Alright, so we have our second color on, and at this point, if you wanted to go ahead and seal, you could, but I'm going to be applying white glitter next, so I'm not worried about it getting on the other colors. And here I'm just taking a Q-tip and some alcohol and just trying to very lightly wipe away some of that red paint. I don't want to wipe too hard or I'll get down to the white base coat and I'll start rubbing that away. So I just very lightly wiped it away and it worked fine. If I had left the red paint on there, it would have shown up under the white glitter. And since the cup is already base coated white, then I'm just using Mod Podge to apply my white glitter. And this white glitter is another Bumblebird glitter, and it's called White Sand. It looks like a true white on camera, but it does have little silver flecks in it. And I did do my bottom. I just did not do it on camera. I covered the whole bottom with the red velvet glitter. So now that all the glitter is on, I am going to go spray seal it one time with Rust-Oleum 2X matte clear spray. There are a few spots that I need to go in and touch up, and I will go and do that. So here it is all touched up. It has one coat of the clear spray, and now I'm going to add 2 coats of CC DIY Quick Coat. So I will apply this first coat and let it dry, and then come back and do the second coat. Your first coat is going to be a little bit thicker just because that glitter is soaking it all up. Your second coat won't be as thick, but the quick coat helps to, as I said, the glitter soaks it all up and it fills in all those cracks and crevices, so that when you do go put your first coat of epoxy on, you're not having to put as much on. I'm just putting my brush in a little Ziploc bag so it doesn't dry out. And now I'm going to apply my second coat. Make sure as soon as you get done with your quick coat to go wash your brush with hot soapy water. I just put some hot soapy water in a little cup, and I'll let the brush soak in there for a few minutes. If you don't wash your brush off immediately, it will be ruined. You won't be able to reuse it. And I'm just pouring what was left. My glitter wasn't, or my quick coat wasn't contaminated, so I just poured the leftover back in the bottle. Make sure your quick coat is completely dry before you apply epoxy. This is 25 mLs of epoxy, and once it was dry, I had a pretty smooth surface. I didn't have to put another coat on before I applied my vinyl. I just did a light sand, and I will show that in the next, or coming up here shortly, I will show. So I'm going to let this spin about 2 hours. I'm going to let my epoxy start to set up, but still where it's tacky, and I'm adding this chunky shapes onto it. It's another Bumblebird glitter. It's called Festival of Lights. It's white snowflakes and green and red hex shapes, and I'm just placing a shape in the center of each diamond. So on the red and green diamonds, I'm placing a snowflake, and on the white diamonds, I'm placing either a red hex or a green hex. You don't have to do this. I just wanted to dress it up a little bit, make it look a little more festive. And all the glitters that I'm showing you today are available on my website. I will make sure to leave the names in the description. So once I have my shapes on, I'm going to let it finish spinning the rest of the time and let it sit overnight. And now here we are at the next day, and I'm going to apply some nail tape. I'm basically outlining each diamond with nail tape, and I think that the nail tape just gives it a cleaner look. Sometimes your glitter lines aren't always perfectly straight, so the tape helps to hide those and just makes it look cleaner. If you remember, in my first tutorial I used double-sided tape with glitter, and the cups came out really gorgeous with the double-sided tape, but the thing about them is it makes the surface of your cup so uneven that you're having to use more epoxy to level it out. With the nail tape, you don't have to do that. It's just like laying regular vinyl down on your cup. And I will leave a description for the nail tape as well. If you don't have nail tape or you don't want to use nail tape, you can also cut thin strips of vinyl out with your Cricut or your Silhouette and put those on. So as you can see, I worked in one direction all the way around the cup, and now I'm working in the other direction around the cup, and that outlines each diamond. I know it's hard to see on camera because it's so thin, but it's a silver nail tape. So here I was going around and trimming off any excess nail tape that was hanging over, and I went ahead and scraped off any excess epoxy that was on there. As I was scraping the epoxy around the top rim of the cup, I had my X-Acto knife angled in towards the inside of the cup so that I did not break my epoxy seal. And then if you have epoxy on the inside of your cup, just run your X-Acto knife around. You can, if you can get the tip of your X-Acto knife underneath the epoxy, you can just pop it right up. So at this point, my tape has not been sealed. It's just laying there right on top. And here I'm applying a piece of white vinyl, and this is where my water slide is going to go. I probably could have used white water slide, but I wasn't sure how much of the pattern was going to show through, and I didn't want it to show through. Make sure that you get out any air bubbles. with the pattern and all the colors on the cup, just laying a clear water slide down on top, I think it would have got lost in all of that. So this gives me a designated area for my water slide. I think that's one of the hardest things about the plaids and the argyles for me, is trying to find a decal, because as I said, there's already so much going on with them. So right here I noticed that some of my nail tape wanted to pull up slightly, just up there at the top of the cup. So I'm just going to go around with some quick coat, just put a drop on the tip of my finger and use it to hold those pieces down. And since I'm using very little, it only takes a few seconds for it to dry. I did have a couple of stubborn spots, so I just held it down until it dried. And it worked. So I'm also sealing around my vinyl just to make sure that it doesn't pop up when I get my epoxy on. If you don't let your vinyl sit, it doesn't have a chance to fully adhere, and it could peel up once you get your epoxy on, and then it's hard to fix. So this glitter that I'm adding, it's another Bumblebird glitter. Excuse me. It's called Ghosted. It turns clear in epoxy. It's not a high flash sparkle, but it does give you a soft, subtle sparkle. I really like it. So I wanted there to be some sparkle under my water slide. So that's why I went ahead and added some into this layer of epoxy. And this that layer of epoxy was 20 mLs, I believe. So now I'm going to do a light sand. My glitter has plenty of epoxy over it, and it's polyester glitter, so I'm not gonna damage it, but the nail tape only has that last layer of epoxy over it. So I very gently sanded around the top and the bottom so I didn't scratch it, and then I did a light sand all the way around the cup. And now I'm wiping it down with alcohol, and now I'm going to apply my water slide. So I mirrored my image, which means I printed it backwards. For some people, mirroring the image is easier. When you mirror your image, you're going to lay it face down on your cup, and you're going to slide the backing paper off the top. When you do it the other way, you lay the backing paper on the cup, and you have to slide it from underneath the water slide. So try both ways, whichever way works best for you. Just make sure if you mirror it that you lay it face down. If you don't lay it face down when you get it on the cup, it's gonna be backwards. If it's just like a Grinch face or it doesn't have words, then either way, laying it down face down or face up, it's not going to make a difference. But if it has words in it, make sure that you lay it the right way. So and you also want to make sure that you wet your cup before you put your water slide on. That way, if you need to make any adjustments, the water slide slides easily around on your cup. And then I used a silicone brush just to brush out any air bubbles get out any excess water from underneath the water slide and to smooth out any wrinkles. And now I'm going to use a paper towel to wipe off any excess water. So you can let this sit for 24 hours. You can run it with your blow dryer, or hit it with your blow dryer or heat gun to dry it faster. You just want to make sure that there's no moisture before you apply epoxy, or your epoxy will look cloudy. So I was hoping that this was going to be my last coat of epoxy, but it wasn't. This is 15 mLs, just because I needed some over the water slide, and I ended up doing another 10 after this one because I did add Ghosted to this layer of epoxy. And I added Ghosted because I wanted just a little bit more shimmer to the decal. So here is the final cup, all done. I really like the way it came out, and I hope that you will try this technique. So give this tutorial a thumbs up. I hope you'll come over and join my Facebook group and check out my website. Thank you for watching. Bye everyone.